Hey everyone, and welcome to the 5 Bytes Podcast. I'm your host, Rory Monahan, and the podcast, as always, is brought to you by my sponsors. And that includes Numescent, the inventors of the first and only cloud-native container management platform for Windows desktops, and also brought to you by Master Packager, an application packaging software that helps you build packages that end users love, enterprises want, and the Windows OS needs. If you enjoy the show each week, you have these awesome sponsors to thank. And now for some news. Microsoft has released an emergency update to fix a bug introduced by the recent July Windows updates for Windows 11 24H2 and Windows Server 2025 that prevents Azure Virtual Machines from launching when the trusted launch setting is disabled and VBS, which is virtualization-based security, is enabled. Microsoft took action pretty quickly for this issue, releasing KB 506-4489, an out-of-band update on Sunday for Windows 11 24H2 and Server 2025, which fixes the kernel initialization issue that prevented the VMs from launching. Microsoft says that administrators can determine if this bug would impact their VMs by performing a few steps, and that is check if your VM is created as standard, and also check if VBS is enabled. You could do this by opening system information and confirming that virtualization-based security is running and that the Hyper-V role is not installed in the VM. According to bleepycomputer.com, if you are impacted, Microsoft recommends installing this out-of-band update instead of the July 8th update KB 506-2553 that was released on Patch Tuesday. Microsoft also says you could prevent this issue by using the Trusted Launch Security feature. Quite the incentive, I guess. In another story related to Windows updates gone wrong, NeoWin.net has reported that a recent Windows update, KB 506-2554, is causing what I would consider to be a pretty minor issue. And that is on Windows 10, the emoji search option when you hit the Win plus keyboard shortcut has stopped working. It does not appear when you hit that keyboard shortcut. Microsoft has not yet acknowledged this problem, at least at the time we're recording this episode of the podcast, which may not be a huge indication that this is not a genuine problem, because I'd imagine this certain functionality, this emoji search, is probably pretty low on the priority list. But hey, it's an issue nonetheless, and it seems to have started after the recent Windows updates. And another issue about Windows updates causing a problem, but this time it's not about the July Windows updates. It is an issue that has been present since, I believe, the June Windows updates. I reported on a recent episode of the podcast that administrators were reporting getting errors in the Windows event log related to the advanced Windows Firewall. And Microsoft had come out and said, oh, this is just related to something we're going to release in future, and the errors basically are kind of false negatives, and they could be ignored. But it has now been confirmed by WindowsCentral.com that the July 2025 Windows security updates will fix those Windows Firewall errors. So they will not appear, and I believe they're going to be wiped from the event log too. You likely already heard about this next story via mainstream media sites or news programs. But McDonald's exposed the chats of more than 64 million job applications across the United States from its McHire chatbot. Security researchers Ian Carroll and Sam Curry found the chatbot's admin panel utilized a test franchise that was protected by weak credentials of a login name, 123456, and a password of 123456. Oof. McHire, the chatbot, was powered by Paradox.ai and has been used by about 90% of McDonald's franchisees, and it accepts job applications through a chatbot named Olivia. Applicants can submit names, email addresses, phone numbers, home addresses, and availability, and are required to complete a personality test as part of the job application process. Once logged in, the researchers submitted a job application to the test franchise to see how their process worked. And during the test, they noticed that HTTP requests were sent to an API endpoint which used a certain lead-ID parameter, which in their case was like 64,185,742. which is what indicates there's over 64 million applications here. The researchers found that by incrementing and decrementing the lead-ID parameter, they were able to expose the full chat transcripts, session tokens, and personal data of real job applicants that previously applied on the McHire chatbot. McDonald's acknowledged the report within an hour, and the default admin credentials were disabled soon after. In a statement to Wired, McDonald's said, quote, "We're disappointed this unacceptable vulnerability from a third-party provider, Paradox.ai. As soon as we learned of the issue, we mandated Paradox.ai to remediate the issue immediately, and it was resolved on the same day it was reported to us." End quote. BleepingComputer.com suggested that Paradox deployed a fix to address the flaw and confirm that the vulnerability was mitigated. Paradox.ai has since stated that it is conducting a review of its systems to prevent similar big issues from recurring. Paradox also told BleepingComputer.com that the information exposed would be any chatbot interaction, such as clicking on a button, even if no personal information was entered. So I think it's more a cautionary tale for these companies that may have their heads turned by AI vendors. Walk to these solutions. Do not run, and certainly don't dive head first without doing due diligence and research. I'm not saying this about Paradox.ai specifically, but there's a lot of new vendors and startups that are just popping up that are AI related. Clearly, they don't have a proven track record for delivering products previously, and certainly not delivering products that are secure and mature. So always do due diligence on these vendors and their products for yourself. I'm surprised a company like McDonald's that's so huge did not do a deep dive security-wise on this. Like, I've worked for vendors selling products and services in the past to very large customers, and their security teams would go through the products with a fine-tooth comb. It's surprising that Microsoft's security team did not catch this. In an update to a previously reported story on this podcast, the UK's National Crime Agency has now arrested 4 people suspected of being involved in cyber attacks on major retailers, including Marks & Spencer, Co-op, and Harrods. All attacks that I've covered previously on the podcast. The arrested individuals are 2 19-year-old males, 1 17-year-old male, and a 20-year-old female, who were apprehended earlier in the week, who were apprehended in their homes in London and the West Midlands in England. One of them is Latvian apparently, and the rest are English. The police also confiscated electronic devices to examine them for potential incriminating evidence or information that might lead to co-conspirators. M&S, as an example of one of the victims, still has not returned to full operations months later, so this has caused significant losses for the victims. In an interesting story, BleepingComputer.com reported that a Russian professional basketball player, Daniil Kasatkin, was arrested in France at the request of the United States for allegedly acting as a negotiator for a ransomware gang. According to French media, Daniel was arrested at Paris's Charles de Gaulle Airport on June 21st after landing in France with his fiancée. He is now under custody while the U.S. seeks to have him extradited to face charges of conspiracy to commit computer fraud and computer fraud conspiracy, which conspiracy to commit fraud and also computer fraud conspiracy. Ugh. What a mind F. His lawyer alleges that he is not guilty of these crimes and that they are instead linked to a second-hand computer that he purchased, and is basically pleading ignorance, saying that he's completely non-technical, doesn't really understand computers, and he simply just bought a second-hand computer that obviously someone who was the negotiator had been using, and thus, his handprints, his fingerprints are all over that computer because he's been using that computer, but it's not his. So yeah, I don't know if that defense will hold up, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. BleepingComputer.com also reported that Microsoft has confirmed a widespread issue in WSUS, which is Windows Server Update Services, that prevents organizations from syncing with Microsoft Update and deploying the latest Windows updates, with event logs showing a connection attempt failed or .NET errors, stating that the operation is timed out when syncs were attempted. Microsoft has now fixed the bug with the server-side fix, stating in an advisory, quote, The issue has been addressed through a service-side repair activity and should be resolved. WSUS sync and update activities are expected to proceed as usual at this time." End quote. So not ideal to lose that service, but it's good that it's now returned. Microsoft has announced that the updated Windows Media releases of Windows 11 and Windows Server now include more recent versions of the inbox applications. Microsoft changed how this works for two reasons apparently, both security and convenience. Microsoft is improving the operating system security by eliminating potential vulnerabilities and exposures in out-of-date versions of inbox applications. And for convenience, there is no longer a need to wait for the application to download its files before you can start using it on the new versions of the operating system when you get them. This saves bandwidth and time for the end user, according to neowin.net. Neowin.net reported that Microsoft has announced the general availability of standard SSD and premium SSD support for Azure Ephemeral OS disks. Previously, only standard HDD could be selected as the base disk type, and with this significant upgrade for stateless workloads, customers will see improved performance and reliability. Microsoft says its premium SSDs provide 8 to 10 times higher IOPS than standard HDD. You will get faster scaling and VM reliability, quick deployments of fresh desktops, and faster job starts on clean environments with the SSDs. And in terms of cost, the standard HDD as base disk for Ephemeral OS disks remains free of additional storage costs. If you choose the standard SSD or premium SSD as the base disk, then you will face additional disk costs. But for that additional cost, keep in mind that premium SSDs offer a 99.9% service level agreement compared to the 95% for the standard HDD, meaning customers get better uptime and reliability. So to me, this takes away probably one of the big incentives of using the Ephemeral OS disks because there will now be a storage-related cost, whereas there wasn't in the past. But it would be interesting still to try it out to see what the performance is like on this new premium storage. Ars Technica has reported that Nvidia is recommending a mitigation for customers of one of its GPU product lines that will degrade performance by up to 10%, but it's in a bid to protect users from exploits that could let hackers sabotage work projects and possibly cause other compromises. The move comes in response to an attack a team of academic researchers demonstrated against Nvidia's RTX A6000, a widely used GPU for high-performance computing that's available from many cloud services. The researchers discover the flaw that opens the GPU to rowhammer, a class of attack that exploits physical weakness in DRAM chip modules that store data. Rowhammer allows hackers to change or corrupt data stored in memory by rapidly and repeatedly accessing or hammering a physical row of memory cells. By repeatedly hammering carefully chosen rows, the attack includes bit flips in nearby rows, meaning a digital 0 is converted to a 1 or vice versa, and until now, rowhammer attacks have been demonstrated only against memory chips for CPUs used for general computing tasks. So hey, a first for the GPUs, I guess. Researchers' proof-of-concept exploits were able to tamper with deep neural network models used in machine learning for things like autonomous driving, healthcare applications, and medical imaging for analyzing MRI scans. So I guess with great power of GPUs also comes great responsibility from a security perspective. And unfortunately, similar to Meltdown and Spectre, securing yourself against these vulnerabilities is going to cost you in terms of performance. In some better news for Nvidia, it was reported by Ars Technica that after recent meetings with US government officials, they believe that they will soon be able to restart sales and shipments of currently prohibited H20 AI chips to customers in mainland China. These chips represent Nvidia's most capable AI processors legally available in China, though they contain less computing power than versions sold elsewhere due to export restrictions imposed in 2022. Nvidia is currently banned from selling its most powerful GPUs in China, but despite these limitations, Chinese tech giants are reportedly scrambling to place orders for the lesser chip through what sources describe as an improved list managed by Nvidia. The resumption of the sales will mark a shift in US-China technology relations after the chips were effectively banned in April, with an export license requirement forcing Nvidia to take a $4.5 billion write-off for excess inventory and purchase obligations. According to Reuters, Chinese sales generated $17 billion in revenue for Nvidia in the fiscal year ending January 26, representing 13% of total sales. Nvidia also announced it will introduce a new RTX Pro chip model specially tailored to meet regulatory rules in the Chinese market, though the company provided no details about its specifications or capabilities yet at this time. NeoWin.net has reported that Microsoft will begin rolling out Copilot memory in Microsoft 365 Copilot this month, and it'll be turned on by default. So memory is a capability that's been in competing products like Gemini and ChatGPT for some time, and it looks like it's finally coming to Copilot. Individual tenants do have the ability to disable it, and so do admins, both organization-wide and just for specific users. Memory data reportedly also can be audited through Purview e-Discovery if you'd like. TheRegister.com has reported that Mistral has released an open automatic speech recognition software bundle called Voxtral in a bid to undercut rivals on price and quality. The Register suggests comparable APIs include OpenAI's Whisper model, which provides transcription at a price of about 0.006 cents per minute, and its GPT-4o mini transcribe model priced at about half that rate. But the Voxtral API starts at just 0.001 cent per minute and goes up to about 0.004 cents per minute with an allegedly better word error rate than GPT-4o mini transcribe. While Voxtral models can be downloaded and used in applications at no cost, Mistral is hoping businesses will pay to use its ASR technology for their applications. Mistral is offering to help companies set up Voxtral for production scale, inference in private infrastructure, and to help tune models for industry-specific applications. Mistral also says it's looking for potential partners who can provide additional functionality like speaker identification or motion detection in model deployments. Google's AI agent, Big Sleep, which launched last year to search for unknown security vulnerabilities, has been effectively uncovering vulnerabilities, including just recently discovering CVE-2025-6965, which was a SQLite vulnerability, which was already being exploited by malicious actors when it was discovered. This was the first time that an AI agent had directly intervened to stop an in-the-wild exploit, according to Google. Aside from some of Big Sleep's latest achievements, such as that, Google unveiled some new AI capabilities recently that it has been working on to boost defenses. One of these is TimeSketch, which is an open-source digital forensics platform that's being enhanced with agentic capabilities powered by SecGemini. This tool reportedly will be able to automate initial forensic investigations to speed up incident response, according to NeoWin.net. WindowsCentral.com has reported that Microsoft's most recent environmental sustainability report has detailed how the company has seen a 23.4% boost in carbon emissions owing to AI, atop a surging 168% increase in its energy demand. Microsoft President Brad Smith, who has championed the company's green pledges, conceded that its 2030 pledges represent a marathon, not a sprint, stating, quote, "As we remain focused on sustained progress towards our 2030 goals, it has become clear that our journey towards being carbon negative is a marathon, not a sprint. While our total emissions have increased by 23.4% compared to our 2020 baseline due to growth-related factors such as AI and cloud expansion, we are encouraged by the fact that this increase has been modest compared to the 168% increase in energy use and 71% revenue growth that has taken place over the same period." End quote. So kind of spinning the fact that, well, maybe this is a good news story after all, because despite a 168% increase in energy demand, Microsoft only saw a 23.4% increase in total carbon emissions. unfortunately, I mean, the net result is there was a 23.4% increase in total carbon emissions, which is not a good thing. Microsoft has also indicated that despite the increase, they are still setting their goals for 2030, and they just may need to redouble their efforts. But now, this episode's scripts, tricks, and tips. I saw that bleepingcomputer.com had shared an article this week that covered best practices for passwords, multi-factor authentication, and access control. Now, I will warn that this was a sponsored post, but you could just read it and take the vendor-specific angles out of it and still make use of the device. There were still some good tips in there. I'll leave it there for this week because, once again, the news stories have started to run long. Honestly, it kind of feels like since the AI kind of mainstream stories have started to become kind of like breakneck speed, that it's been impossible pretty much to keep the episodes under like 20-25 minutes, which is probably something also I'll need to consider when it comes to thinking about the future of the podcast. But hey, thanks as always for listening.